Good evening. Welcome to the maiden edition of Nigeria 2015. I'm Chamberlain Oso. It's our election studios where we dissect the activities of political parties, politicians, the umpire, and the electorate. Well, pre-election activities, the elections, and post-election activities will be in focus here. What kind of issues will impact the elections? Well, a team of correspondents will provide informed reportage and talk to the people who matter across the country. Well, joining us tonight is Demola Oshodi, a policy analyst who only recently consulted with the World Bank and Department for International Development. Well, he will talk us through what the elections were like in 2011, and he will also tell us a little bit about what to expect in 2015. Well, don't forget that we also have the social media platform where you can interact with us. We've got that platform available here. Nigeria 2015 at channelstv.com is the email address that you can send us your comment to if you'd like to. And don't forget the Twitter account as well, Chamberlain Oso, and then that of Channels TV. But you can also hashtag Nigeria 2015. Well, then we'll just take a minute and we'll be back to you in just a moment. Welcome back to our studios of Nigeria 2015. Well, let's take you through some of the high points of 2011. You do remember that the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Atari Ijaga, also spoke up at that time with this big announcement.
E. Jonathan of PDP, having certified the requirements of the law and scored the highest number of votes, is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected. Signature of returning officer signed by me, dated this 18th day of April 2011. Thank you very much.
Well, that was the mood in 2011 when he declared the current president, who is seeking re-election, winner of that election in 2011. Well, here now are some of the election results as it played out in 2011 as well. And then you just take a quick look at some of the breakdown, which will come and show you sooner rather than later. But then you'll get to see the breakdown of the figures in percentages, and then you also show the candidates who won and how they won at the time. So these were the leading candidates at that time. They, four of them, vied for the election at that time. And so there you see he with the president with that margin of votes. And then subsequently you also saw the CPC candidate, I beg your pardon, who is now in another political party, having come together and merged as one. And so they also followed in that order. Nuhu Ribadu happening to be the next one, and then Madam Shakal also in the fray, in the thick of things. Well, as I did introduce, Demola Oshodi is here with me, so I will just move over and Demola will just talk us through some of these elections as it played out at that time. Demola, glad you could join us this evening on these elections, but let's take our minds back to how it played out in 2011. Yes, we know that historians tell you, we know how a thing could go, by possibly how it happened before, but taking us through those figures, you have gone through these figures yourself. What particularly strikes you with these results of 2011 elections?
Yes, good evening. Thanks for having me. Well, the most striking aspect of it, I think, is the dichotomy, the fact that you find a North and the South almost voting opposite for the presidential results. You have the North voting the CPC, and you have the South dominated by the PDP ruling party. And obviously, there's a oasis of in Osun State where the ACN candidate Ribadu has won, but you basically see that huge division between North and South in the country. That's probably the most visible of the results.
You know, before now, I mean, while talking behind the scenes, I mean, there were those who were thinking about, are we going to have things such as the swing states, the battleground states? Well, they may, it did appear that they had strongholds, some of these parties, I mean, the PDP, the CPC, the ACN, and AMPP at the time. What did you see as who had where as stronghold?
Well, it's the strongholds are quite obvious. You find that the far northern states, Sokoto, Katsina, Borno, and the rest of them had a stronghold where the northern candidate held sway. And you find in the south, especially where the presidential candidate of the PDP, President Jonathan, from that area also held sway. So there was quite a regional result. The north kept the north, the south kept the south, and then other areas of the country, especially the west, the middle belt, was also quite moving towards one direction. So it was most of a northern-southern result, and it's quite obvious. If you look at, for instance, Bayelsa State, which is astonishingly has almost 97% result for the PDP candidate, which is quite remarkable in any election system. PDP winning 504,000, while the CPC candidate winning 691 votes. So that that's disparity. And then you look at, for instance, Sokoto State, I think, whereby the northern candidate with Muhammadu Buhari holding sway there. The very large percentage, and quite close in reality. But Kano State, you find PDP just 440,000, CPC with just 1.6 million. So there's that disparity, large margin, whereby another person, somebody else, or something else.
At that time, I mean, there was this seeming revival about INEC and the elections at the time, to the extent that we had, I look at that number, the total number of registered voters, which we see there, and then the total number of votes cast, and percentage of votes cast as well. What strikes you looking at this? Because it was larger than the figure we had in the previous election.
What, the registered voters number? Well, it was larger, but the actual voting number was less than the 2007 elections. So more people may have registered for the 2011 election, but less people voted compared to the election that preceded it. So people would say, well, maybe the 2007 voter register was inflated, because 2007 election was probably one of the most corrupt and worst elections in Nigerian history. 2007 that brought Yar'Adua to power. So we see a difference in the 2011, which is supposed to be one of the best elections we've ever had. The fact that in any democracy there's always a larger voter registration than an actual voter turnout on election day. It's quite common. 51%, almost 52% in Nigeria is actually quite good. If we notice that in that election there was one day, like April 2nd, that people were not were told not to come and vote. There was a problem with INEC's voting system processes, so that election was postponed. So in many ways, that could have, brought some sort of, voter apathy, especially, parts of the country. Who's going to go back and queue up for another 2 hours, etc. So that itself would have affected voter turnout.
But from what you've seen preparatory to this election, the pre-election activities about voter registration, are we likely to see something similar to this, or would it be lower, or even much more than we've seen in 2011?
Well, the voter registration is supposed to be larger than this. It's well over, I think, close to 90 million presumed potential voters for Nigeria. But with the problem with the permanent voters, card, there could be an issue with actual voter turnout or even voter registration. So people are having problems picking up their voters card, their permanent voters card. And this in many ways could affect people coming out to vote, or even, votes being counted, etc. Because people will go there confused with a temporary voter card. People will go there with some other person's voter's card. The issues around the PVC is probably a potential problem with this election if it's not basically, corrected on time. It will definitely affect voter turnout.
Okay, because going through some of the footnotes here, we see the then CPC candidate, Muhammadu Buhari, recording huge wins in Sokoto, Kebbi, Borno, Zamfara, Katsina, Kano, Bauchi, Kaduna, Niger, and Jigawa. And then the incumbent, Goodluck Jonathan, recorded wins in the entire southeast, in south-south, in southwest, in the entire southeast, south-south, even other than Osun. in Southwest, yes, with the exception of Osun, that went to the ACN at the time. And then look at the FCT, Abuja,
Yes.
also went to him. Adamawa, Benue, Plateau, Kogi, Taraba, and Kogi, all going to the incumbent. But the way it is now, we've seen political parties having this internal wrangling. So they talk about their internal democracy, the party primaries that they held, how they are not happy with the way it went. Are they likely, or how do you see them affecting all of these states that each party has won at the time?
Well, it's going to be quite change. It's a change in environment right now. We have just two parties. So the previous election we had possibly 4 major parties. Now we just have 2 major parties in play. So even though that 2011 election, the INEC registered 52 parties, 4 major parties actually performed in that election. And what you will see here, if I can just, I don't know if it's going to screen here, is you see, again, that kind of division. How it turns out in this election will be quite different. Everybody now is almost by forced into 2 parties. So if you have your interest is more ethnic, you have to choose one. If your interest is religious, you have to choose one. If you're a minority group, you have to choose one of those 2 parties. There's a less of a choice for the electorate right now.
I mean, you are a statistician. I mean, while collating your figures,
yes.
Does any such word, religion, pop up in your index, and how do you deal with it?
Well, it's Nigeria is an emerging democracy. Not only just religion pop up, we also have issues of ethnicity, tribe, etc. So it's bound to happen. We just hope that as time goes on, the electorate is more informed, more sophisticated, and look at their interests beyond those parochial, ideas in their mind. So yeah, religion is playing a big factor. It was always playing a factor in the north. It's playing a factor now in the south. So it's something that is here and hopefully will go in subsequent elections.
All right, now, still to come on Nigeria 2050, we'll take a sneak peek into what will we expect this year for the general elections. We'll be back in just a moment. Join us again.